Just want to read something just that I quickly prepared this morning. First of all, I just would like to thank everyone for being here and for reaching out to us this weekend. It just means a lot to have your support. I just would like to begin by putting the attention to our players. They're all here today, and I'd like to thank them for the way that they've been handling and representing themselves, our team, and UMaine this weekend. If you guys could stand, I just would really like to say how amazing you guys have been in taking this on this weekend. So. I would just like to kind of share some of the feelings that I've had since the game, since Saturday's game to arriving last night and even this morning. At the end of each game, you can see visually how much of each player goes into the competition. Their eyes and bodies show the physical, mental, and emotional drain for giving all of themselves to the outcome of the game, to their team, and to their school. That part was taken away from them on Saturday, and it left them feeling like their talent, effort, and sacrifice may not matter or is not valued. When addressing the team after the game on Sunday and while traveling back, I couldn't help but have a feeling of not having done enough for everything that they do. I want to share those feelings with you today since we were not able to do so this weekend. We need to do everything that we can here at UMaine to make sure that you never have to experience those feelings again. All of our student athletes are invaluable to our university, and standing up to treat people fairly should be the most important aspect of everything that we do. Your efforts in handling these situations do matter, and it is harder to stand up to something as opposed to do nothing. It took strength and courage to do so, and for that, we're proud of your representation of UMaine.
Okay. Thanks, Coach. Do you have anything to add, or do you want to just go to questions? Questions? Questions for anyone?
Riley, how bizarre was this to go through? I mean, were you flabbergasted when they came and said, hey, you're not going to finish the game?
I think we were confused at first. And I think, too, it was like an in-the-moment thing. You know, we were like, is this a joke? And my first thought when they said come back at 5:30 was how the second they said that, I was thinking, how am I going to mentally get back into this game right now? Because, I mean, it was a mental hole the whole game. It was 0-0 battle, you know? So that was my first thought. And then when they said, you know, we're not going to play this game, and the refs are in the back packing up, and we're standing there, it's just like, okay, which there was nothing we could do. And then I think once we left the field, it was like feelings that settled in. I don't think it was right then and there. We thought it was like I don't know, I think we were just shocked. And it's almost like awful that I'm not surprised, because, you know, we're a women's field hockey team. Field hockey is not a huge sport in America, and, you know, we're a women's team, and I think it was just like, yeah, like, it's one of these moments again. And I think on one level we should be shocked and surprised, but on another level it's pretty sad that it's just not so shocking in a way, I guess.
How about the Twitter just blew up? Have you been surprised by the amount of, you get big-time people involved, well-known personalities that are taking the side of you and Temple for this situation. Have you been surprised by the overwhelming support you've had across the country?
Yeah, definitely, like, UMaine Field Hockey's tweet got a lot of attention. And then a couple of us released some tweets, and at first I wasn't going to say anything, and then I was like, you know, I should just, basically what I tweeted was factual. Just said our game got cut after the first overtime because the football game was starting. And then that blew up, and then we had some people responding to the UMaine Field Hockey tweet that were confused, like, well, they thought we were playing Kent State, and so I was basically saying, like, it was a neutral site, we were playing Temple, and there was fireworks, and then it just went from there. And, you know, like I said in my last tweet, I've gotten a lot of support and also a lot of controversy, and there was people coming out saying some pretty horrible things, and I think that, you know, that goes to show that people truly still believe that women's sports is not as much as men's sports, and just really showed that, so it's crazy.
Riley, how important was it for you to put it on Twitter and show, you know, obviously it's one thing to hear about the fireworks, but to show the display, how important was it, in your opinion, for you to put that on Twitter and for people to actually see what Kent State decided was more important than the game?
I think the second somebody sent it in the group chat, I mean, all of our reaction was to be like, you're joking, like we were laughing, like this is a joke, right? Like, so I told Brie, I was like, you need to screen record that and send it to me. And I was like, I didn't hesitate to put it on Twitter because, you know, just to show, like, people were like, are they sharing the field? What's going on? Are there fireworks? And I'm like, this is the facts right here. These are the fireworks. This is the reason we were kicked off the field. I think it was just important because the facts were getting confused and twisted, so.
Coach, does this make you want to rethink ever playing a game there again?
No, because I just want to clarify that as well. This was not a decision by the Kent State field hockey program, and I think by doing that we would be actually hurting that program. And the coach was, you know, well, first of all, it's similar to us, where if we didn't have the ability, this coming weekend we're playing BU and Columbia, and we're hosting, BU and Columbia are playing each other as a neutral site game, and we're hosting that game. And it's very important for us to be able to do that, because maybe a team won't consider coming to UMaine, and because they might think it's more expensive for them to travel here and try to play us here as a single game, but they might consider doing it because they're getting 2 games out of the weekend. And that's why we chose, you know, when we were invited to Kent State, that's why we chose to do that. And Kent State actually agreed to a return next year, and we're hosting them next season in a double weekend with Hofstra. And I just want to clarify that because, you know, I think that for them it's a similar situation at their school. So if I wouldn't want to take that stance, because I think that it would hurt their field hockey program, and that's not who was responsible. They were actually, their team was very, that was the best part of the weekend for us, actually, was the support of their team. After our game versus Kent State, their entire team came over while our team was, you know, huddled together and cooling down. Their entire team came over. They had a player make a statement, a very emotional statement about how proud they were of our team for the social media attention that they drew to, you know, to help them. And like, you know, it was emotional. Both teams were crying and, you know, hugging each other to support each other through, you know, through the situation, because even though Kent State wasn't part of the game, they were, you know, they were embarrassed by what happened, because they invited those, you know, both of us to be there that weekend to be able to play each other.
What's the resolve? You know, I know they're talking about maybe even you and Temple getting together to finishing the game. Tyson says you're still waiting here from the NCAA. Do you have a preferred resolution to this? Or same with Riley. I'll throw that question out to you.
There's, you know, the whole part of overtime is that the outcome of the game to be determined in overtime, unless, I mean, there could be circumstances that you might not be able to continue the overtime, like weather or something that might alter the outcome. But the whole point of overtime is that both teams are at the worn out stage and are like testing each other physically to get the, you know, the outcome of the game. And I think to come back and play each other for those 10 minutes would change the outcome of the game, because both teams would be fresh. It would probably just end up in a draw and go to a shootout, whereas I don't think that would have been the case if we would have been allowed to continue the game on Saturday.
I know Joe said, I know the Field Hockey Coaches Association released the statement this morning, but have you guys received word from the NCAA, and if so, have you been satisfied with that?
The NCAA reached out through email this morning, and we have to respond still to the email. They want more information on the details of the game.
So they're still gathering information?
Yep.
So They haven't decided what it's gonna be, whether it's gonna be a scrimmage, whether they're gonna award a tie, whether they're gonna try to find if you two play anywhere near each other, whether you can squeeze out the 10 minutes in a possible penalty stroke shootout.
Yeah, they haven't determined that
Do
yet.
you have a preference? Would you like to finish it, or call it a tie, or?
I think if we could call it a tie at this point would probably be the best
As opposed to a
outcome.
scrimmage, yeah, okay, so it goes in the books of the tie, okay.
Yeah.
Riley?
I don't know how to answer that, to be honest. I think there's no fix at this point.
Yeah.
Coming back on the field to play Temple would just kind of leave a sour taste in my mouth, to be honest. I think it's just almost more embarrassing because it's like, you know, it should have been finished the first time. It would just be really emotionally hard to personally get myself into that game, and I think speaking for my teammates, it would be hard for them too.
Riley, with all the talk today about Title IX and equality, women's sports, and the U.S. Women's National Team this summer was a big part of that. When something like this directly happens to you and the rest of the team, how frustrating is it to see that, you know, all the talk in situations like this has kind of gone by the wayside?
I think it's brought up a lot of, like we've said, emotions. And first and foremost, it's offensive and it's upsetting to think that just because you're a gender, your sport is looked at as less. We work just as hard as any men's team. Personally, I really do believe that. They work extremely hard. We work extremely hard at Division I level. I've been thinking a lot, I guess, and I think that we get an opportunity when we're recruited to be on a team at a higher level, and then once we commit to show up when I'm here as a UMaine Black Bear the first day, that gives me the right to a locker room, the right to the training room, the right to the weight room, the right to practice time, and ultimately to finish a game is 110% a right. It's not an opportunity. You know, Title IX is great, but Title IX exists, and that in itself shows that the fact that Title IX has to exist for us to receive rights to be equal is just self-explanatory, I think.
She was at Temple couldn't play. Weren't they flying back? They couldn't play at 5:30. They couldn't come back,
They
right?
were by bus, but their bus driver, I think the bus was not available to them.
So they couldn't come back at 5:30 and play.
How were you able to kind of harness everything and play yesterday after a situation like that? How was that whole thing? She touched on after the game. Trying to rebound as athletes, play a game like that the next day.
I think it was mental. You know, we had spoken about before the game, let's put away Twitter and try to let, you know, the day before go. Not that it was the case at all. Our locker room was in the football stadium, so you can imagine how, you know, the emotions were already stirred up. Yeah, I mean, it's not that we blamed Kent State field hockey. We had nothing against them, you know, didn't blame Kent State football players or anything. But yeah, I think the only way I can describe it is it's hard to hold your shoulders up when you feel like you've just been brushed off and looked at as less than, or I felt like a joke. I felt like they didn't recognize that Division I women's field hockey is legit. They thought football was more legit than we are. And, you know, it's not field hockey versus football or whatever, but in this case, that was the case. So I think it showed we talked a lot about body language like at halftime, and it definitely showed that how can you show up on that field and have confidence when their administration just told you that you have nothing to be confident about, you know? Maybe they didn't say it, but with what they did, that's what they were showing us.
Was it something where they kind of expressed that too? You know, it's got to be embarrassing for them as a program to have their administration act like that, and it reflects on them whether they wanted to or not. Were they expressive about how that made them feel too? You kind of touched on it, but
Mm-hmm.
was that kind of the sentiment, I guess?
I think in the game, both teams still battled. They wanted the win, and so did we. I mean, like we said, they talked to us after the game, and former Black Bear Danny Abiani played for us, and she's actually one of the assistants at Kent. And she spoke to me after the game, and she was very emotional, and she just said this was a really hard win for me. And I think that says a lot, because what team doesn't want to win? And to think that it put a coach in a situation that made a win hard, that's upsetting. And I think, you know, of course, because she said, you know, I'm a Maine fan first, and I just think it shouldn't put anyone, I'm sure their players felt like, well, God, we just beat them, and now maybe they're feeling guilty. Well, that should never be the case. It should be, you know, we should feel that we both respect each other, and I think it took us out of that, I guess.
I guess, did they feel disrespected by their school, that they treated field hockey in that light? That's what I meant.
Yeah, definitely. I think with what they were saying to us after, they were saying that they're working to be better, and that they were just so sorry, and they were thankful that we were there to play them.
One or two more? Anyone have any?